Hello students, in this session we will discuss political science first paper which came in this year mains few days back 2023. Let's start with the question number 1. Today we'll do only the first paper, and in the next video I'll try to do the same on the second paper, right? One thing we should know that this is not a kind of class, but we should try to know that what can be the best possible answer, and in whatever the best possible answer we should write for whatever is given, what general points and scholars or maybe conclusion we should have for sure. A good conclusion and good introduction is always very impressive part for the examiner, right? So it will be like outlining the best possible answer in what has been given. So the first question we have in hand is, as you can see on the board as well, normative approach in political science. What we need to do here is, comment. And how many words you need to write? 150 words. So of course, those who have written mains don't know the importance of word limit. So comment. Comment means what you understand by this line which is given, normative approach in political science. So what you need to write here is 3 things very clearly. First paragraph you will write that introduction which can be there, that what is the normative approach, dealing with what is norms. When normative approach was the dominant approach since the time of the ancient Greeks, you can say until the beginning of the behavioral revolution. And so the normative approach ka meaning, first paragraph. And then second is the important scholars and thinkers or the historical evolution of normative approach, right? Then third paragraph is the main features of normative approach with suitable examples, suitable examples. And then the last conclusive paragraph you can write that the relevance of normative approach in overall political science, because that overall importance में 2 बातें लिखनी ही लिखनी थी. Number 1, that the critics of normative approach believe that norms dominant in the political theory due to normative approach reduce the political science to moral preaching, and therefore a normative approach in political science is considered the main reason for decline of political theory. Another argument you can give, the relevance of normative approach, which will be in the conclusion, that the normative approach, scholars like many scholars are there. Specifically, you can write Rawls or Macpherson, you can write, Nozick, you can write Foucault, you can write many people, that they, without prescribing certain norms in the political theory, political science will be a very narrow and very restricted phenomena of studies, and therefore a normative approach is something which has remained the soul of political science since the beginning of the political theory with Plato and Aristotle in the ancient Greece. तो इन सारी बातों को मिला के आपको नॉर्मेटिव अप्रोच वाले क्वेश्चन का आंसर देना था. एक आध रिलेवेंट स्कॉलर लिखते रहना. सी पॉइंट इज कि हाउ मेनी डायमेंशंस यू कवर. अब इसमें आपने बहुत बढ़िया क्वेंटिन स्किनर लिख दिया, आपने कोई बहुत बढ़िया थिंकर डिक्लाइन ऑफ पॉलिटिकल थियरी लियो स्ट्रॉस लिख दिया, ठीक है, तो उसका रिलेवेंस थोड़ा कम है. बट द डायमेंशंस विच आई गेव यू, what is defining normative approach, then example दे के बताना what is normative approach, thinkers को बताना normative approach, features of normative approach, then relevance of normative approach. All these things you needed to include in this question. Let's go to the other one. The next question we have is the multicultural perspective on rights. So basically the question is comment on multicultural perspective on rights. So what is the introduction? Introduction is the same for this question always for any good student, is that rights always is a matter of debate. Depending on the time and space, the demands and need of rights keep changing. And so no surprise that the multicultural perspective on rights developed in the 1980s and 90s due to the very fast development of interlinkages and globalization. First paragraph done. Then you will go that what is the meaning of multicultural rights. So you will write that multicultural rights is actually giving rights on the basis of the different groups of the cultures and communities, without expecting them to be forcibly or legally assimilated into the rule of law. Then third paragraph, you will explain that in one sense, multicultural perspective of rights is the counter to liberal perspective of rights, specifically the classical liberal theory. Because the concept of rule of law and law will apply everyone equally is the main target for the multicultural thinkers. Then the next paragraph you will show at least two people here. One is the communitarian thinkers, like Taylor, and other is the Wilkimlicka. That how without the membership to the cultural community, no person can actually have any meaningful rights, because rights is about maximum development, and development will not be meaningful without the, you can say, embeddedness in the cultural community in which the person belongs to. Similarly, Wilkimlicka, you will give the example what is said about multicultural right. You can also give Bhikkhu Parekh, whatever it means. But ओवर एक्सप्लेनेशन नहीं चाहिए. मेनली उन लोगों ने क्या बोला यहाँ पे ये बात लिखनी है. और लास्ट में यू विल राइट कि मल्टीकल्चरल पर्सपेक्टिव ऑन राइट्स इज नॉट विदाउट क्रिटिसिज्म. It has its own set of criticisms. For example, liberals argue that the multicultural perspective of rights is mainly for the developed countries who have resolved their problem of state building and nation building. But in developing countries, or those countries where the political stability is under question, then asking for this kind of thing is not a very good idea. Okay, so this thing you will write here. Okay, go to the next question. State of nature is state of war. Easiest question for majority of you, I suppose. That, but in this what you will write? Hobbes' statement, it's very clear. So you will write there as introduction that for Hobbes the state of nature is the background in which the very bleak state of condition of humans are envisaged. State of nature is where the people are not safe. State of nature is where people are competing against each other. State of nature where people are selfish because they are naturally pro-desire people, and therefore what we desire is desired by everyone else. So competition in a state of nature is natural, right? And so by default it leads to sense of insecurity. It leads to sense of pain and against pleasure. So therefore every person in a state of nature, Hobbes said, will be morally correct only by defending their own safety and security. And since nobody can be 100% safe and secure in such anarchical state of nature, then only way humans can live with maximum probability of safety and security is the perpetual condition of war of all against all, in which the life of person is poor, nasty, brutish and short. Right? ये सब लिख के 2-3 पैराग्राफ में. देन यू विल से कि स्टेट ऑफ नेचर का जो भी हॉब्स का है उसका लॉजिकल कंसिक्वेंस क्या होता है। तो चूंकि स्टेट ऑफ नेचर हॉब्स ऐसा क्रिएट करता है, वेरी ब्लीक एंड पेसिमिस्टिक, देयरफॉर ही ट्रांसफर्स हिज कंप्लीट नेचुरल राइट्स टू लेवियाथन। तो चूंकि पर्पस ऑफ लेवियाथन इज टू क्रिएट सिक्योरिटी स्टेट, and therefore Leviathan created, means the state created by Hobbes, has the tendency to become absolute dictatorial state as pointed out by Karl Popper and many others. इतना लिख के उसको छोड़ देना है। ओके, नाउ लेट्स गो टू द नेक्स्ट वन, फूको's कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ पावर। हम सभी जानते हैं कि पावर इज हम इसको कैसे लिखेंगे। In first introduction, we will write that power is essentially a contested concept, as said by you can say Stephen Lukes. Stephen Lukes. The basic differences in the debate of power in political science is about the location of power in the society. There can be two ways to understand power. One is location of power, other is the basis of power. Here we need to talk, when we are talking about Foucault, is about the location of the power primarily. Marx says that power stays in class. Elite says that power stays in elite unity and capability. Liberals say power stays in the legality of the rational legal state. But the Foucault denies all of them, and this says that all these powers described by the people are basically to perpetuate a particular ideological position. And if you don't want to have an ideological position or power, then only way you can define power is power as the fluidity in the governmentability. This word you have to write, governmentability. Now what does it mean? That Foucault says power is not located in any fixed place. Power flows in the veins like flows in the society like blood in the veins. It's everywhere. The power is in the ability of the person to control the conduct of the others, like lawyers versus client, doctors versus patient, or authority versus people. So wherever I'm supposed to follow you, you are powerful. So power comes from the authoritability, governmentability, and therefore power is fluid and like oxygen present in every procedure of the society. Then next paragraph you will say that here Foucault, as the postmodern thinker following Jacques Derrida followed him. So the overall concept which Foucault gives on power is postmodern concept of power, which means that it is the power which creates knowledge. Earlier version was that knowledge creates power, but Foucault says that no, it is the powerful people create those norms and regimes in society which people believe to be right or wrong. And he gave the very famous example of panopticon envisaged by Bentham, or you can say the medical standards of being gay, lesbian, or others, or being mad. All these things are the standard decided by those who are in power. So power creates knowledge, and knowledge perpetuates the power, and therefore Foucault's concept of power is totally different from any mainstream theories of power. It is postmodern theory. It is followed by the Jacques Derrida deconstruction, and so Foucault's theory of power is a paradigm shift in how we understand the power, right? So this is the way concept of power has been defined by Michel Foucault as the postmodern thinker, differently from the other previous thinker. You can also write here that Marx believed in this power and that power. That is totally fine, right? Now next question we have here in 2002 is decline of political theory. Again we are doing only question number 1. So here what you need to do is comment 150 word. So decline of political theory. So decline of political theory है क्या हो गया है decline? नहीं, ऐसे नहीं लिखना होता है. You will have to write डिक्लाइन ऑफ पॉलिटिकल थियरी इज अ डिबेट. प्रूव नहीं कर देना है कि डिक्लाइन हो गया है या हो नहीं हुआ है. As a political science student, you have to go there by saying that decline of political theory is a debate that emerged post World War II with the, you can say, emergence and popularity of behavioralism led by David Easton in US specifically after Second World War, you know. And so they said, what is decline of political theory? They said that political theory which were prevalent before the Second World War, means normative traditional approach of political theory, made the whole political science highly speculative, imaginary in nature. And thus political science and political thinkers could not speculate the Second World War, they could not speculate the rise of fascism, they could not speculate the millions of people's death and destruction of property in the Second World War. So the modern political theory, which was normative before Second World War, was used by the behavioral thinkers to declare that political theory has declined. Debate hai. Then third paragraph you will write that decline of political theory supporters actually believed in behavioralism, but as it is said and showed by the Quentin Skinner and Sabine and many others, specifically Leo Strauss, that without norms, without the values, it is not possible to build any meaningful political science. And then a decline as a debate was its own contradiction. For example, post-behavioral revolution address of 1969 American Political Science Association of David Easton, he said that norms and relevancy both should be equally added into the behavioral political science. And popularity of Rawlsian theory, Nogic's theory, Amartya Sen's theory, analytical Marxism, or you can say even in IR theories of neo-realism, neo-idealism, all these things made it very clear that decline of political theory is a debate has the academic value, but we cannot say that because of norms and preferences of a particular thinker making his political theory has made the political science restricted or less valuable. तो ये सारी बातें आपको यहाँ पे लिखनी है. Okay, let's go to the next question. Next question we have success. Yes, the success of contemporary democracy lies in the state limiting its own power. Explain. 20 words, 250 words, 20 marks, 250 word. थोड़ा बड़े में लिखना होगा. तो सक्सेस ऑफ कंटेम्पररी डेमोक्रेसीज पूछ रहा है, और कंटेम्पररी डेमोक्रेसीज में यू कैन टेक इट मे बी लास्ट 20-30 years. So they are saying very clearly contemporary democracies are basically the democracies who became democratic probably in third wave of democracy. तो पहले क्या करना है कि डेमोक्रेसी के तीनों वेव्स तो लिखने ही लिखने हैं. ठीक है, दैट डेमोक्रेसी in the international relations or world politics or among the nation states भी लिख सकते हो, came in various phases. The contemporary democratic systems are having all the three waves, first wave, second and third wave specifically of 1990s. The spring, Arab Spring may be called the fourth wave, though Samuel Huntington doesn't talk about that. The question is that success of democracy. So what is called success of democracy? तो फिर आपको लिखना पड़ेगा. The debate on success of democracy can be done in various ways. For example, if we talk about the Herbert Marcuse, then he will say that democracy has inherent contradiction of welfare versus capitalist dominance. So he will say that contemporary democracies, even Western and Eastern, means developing, all are suffering from the legitimation crisis. So that is the contemporary democratic debate. You can otherwise you can also write that from liberal perspective, if we see that democracies are successful when they have the procedural democratic system, at least free and fair election, you know,
then frequent elections, regular elections, a peaceful transfer of power, and universal adult franchise. These are the contemporary democratic successful. On the other hand, C.V. Macpherson believes that success of democracy, even contemporary democracies, cannot be dealt only by this, because there may be radical theories of democracy in which the inner party democracy, if it is present, then even the single party government can be called democratic in nature. So, now the next question goes that limiting the state its own power is necessary for the success. So, here democracy means rule of the people, for the people, by the people, right. So, the state is a rule of the people, for the people, by the people. So, democracy के definition में ही there is inherent limitation on the power of the state, purpose of the state, constitution of the state. The power of the state is limited by the expectation of the people, that is called accountability. Purpose of the state is limited by the motivation of the people, right. And constitution of the state is the by the people. So, people will be elected, or people will be choosing each other or anyone to rule it. So, when we talk about the contemporary democracies, it is very clearly that state will be democratic, only genuinely democratic, only if it limits its own power in the constitutional prescribed contractual manner. That is very true. Now, then you will write कि we can very easily see that when state agencies, they don't accept the limitation on their power, democracies don't exist. And यहाँ पे आपको एग्जाम्पल देना था म्यांमार का, नाइजर का, कोट डे आइवर का, या फिर और अफ्रीका में कंट्रीज़ हैं जो पिछले 2 साल में डेमोक्रेटिक से नॉन डेमोक्रेटिक हो गए हैं. So all these have been shifting from democracy to non-democracy. और लिखना है backsliding of democracies debate दुनिया में चल रही है, इसीलिए क्वेश्चन आया है. So backsliding of democracy has been caused by the factor that the state are unable to accept the limitations on itself. Limitation on itself. At the end, we will write that the success of democracy is a very subjective manner. But one thing is very clear, that in normal sense democracy is successful if there is free and fair election, the government is sensitive, accountable, voting right is universal and given to everyone without any irrational discrimination, and from this perspective constitutional law must be followed and state must accept the limitation on itself. Then you can write Bernard Crick that the point here is that the democracy itself is a contested concept, and there can be various varieties and various definitions on what is the success of contemporary democracy. Then job is done. Okay, go to the next question. Rawls' idea of liberal self is too individualistic. Explain in this context the communitarian critique of. Very obvious question, you understand, directly given in the syllabus. So you will explain Rawls' liberal self first. Rawlsian theory of justice is the liberal theory of justice. Rawls devises the procedure of social contract to develop his theory. He uses the various liberal thinking such as Lockean social contract, Lockean individualism, Kantian dignity, and then he creates a procedural theory of justice which he calls pure procedural theory of justice. On the other hand, it is naturally a theory of equality of opportunity, theory of positive discrimination, and hence it can also be called the substantive theory of justice. Then second paragraph you will go writing that how veil of ignorance creates the individual and extreme individual in terms of communitarian scholars, and then he will explain the veil of ignorance and how it is ignorant and what is the importance of veil and how it will be actually done. फिर इसके बाद से then you will write that theory of justice, you will write all the three, the formula of distribution, specifically only one is important, that Rawls says that everything should be divided equally. unless the unequal distribution goes for the maximum benefit to the minimum holders of the goods and services in the society. Now the communitarians, you will write Michael Sender, Charles Taylor, Michael Walger, at least these three one by one, the name of their books, you will write ki what do they say, that the person who is, for example, they say that the person who is an individual and the wheel of ignorance will not be able to decide for the others in society as Rawls is expecting. लास्ट में आप लिख सकते हो सबका लिखने के बाद कि विल किमलिका ने बोला है कि भाई देखो, Rawlsian theory of justice using the will of ignorance and social contract, which is a hypothetical thing, not a realistic thing, only to establish the moral perspective of theory of justice. He's not saying that the veil of ignorance actually happened, but what if the veil of ignorance is there? So despite the weakness, the Rawlsian theory of justice has no alternative in the liberal principles, because the communitarian critics, though sound very strong, are quite complicated in themselves. This is the way you will end this thing. Now, next question. Relevance. Credo of relevance in post-behavioralism advocates the importance of action science. ठीक है, सो वी आर डिस्कसिंग द पोस्ट बिहेवियरलिज्म एंड डिक्लाइन ऑफ पॉलिटिकल थियरी. तो ये एक ही जगह से तीनों आए हैं. क्रेडो ऑफ रेलिवेंस इन पोस्ट बिहेवियरलिज्म एडवोकेट्स इन इंपॉर्टेंस ऑफ एक्शन साइंस. ठीक है, तो पोस्ट बिहेवियरलिज्म, डेविड ईस्टन 1969 व्हेन ही गेव इन हिज एड्रेस ऑफ पोस्ट बिहेवियरल रिवोल्यूशन, then he said that so far in the last 20 years we have focused upon on the factuality of political theory. Means we will create political theory only when we have sufficient facts and data to back up that theory. The point happened, now next paragraph, the point happened that behavioralism led to making of a political theory which were perhaps not very relevant to the needs of the people, because data can be created or data can be collected not for all those problems of the human needs and human challenges. Aim of political science is to solve the problem of the human life, and data for every problem of human life may not be there. And therefore, if you want to make data science in the political science, it will not be possible for you to make a proper political science. In this sense, what happened with the post-behavioral revolution, that David Easton recognized that behavioralism was not totally right, and let's include the relevance of the research topics, of the डेटा कलेक्शन टॉपिक्स. बिकॉज अगर हम जिस बात पे काम कर रहे हैं डेटा पे, अगर वो रेलिवेंट टू पीपल नहीं है, रेलिवेंट टू सोसाइटी नहीं है, तो जस्ट बिकॉज डेटा इज प्योर और डेटा कैन बी कलेक्टेड डजंट मेक पॉलिटिकल सेंस इन एनी मीनिंगफुल वे. सो देयरफॉर रेलिवेंस, अगर आपके थियरी और डेटा कलेक्शन में नहीं है तो उस पे प्रॉपर इम्प्लीमेंटेशन कैसे होगा, है कि नहीं. सो देयरफॉर बिहेवियरलिज्म प्लस रेलिवेंस प्लस वैल्यूज leads to action, because desired action is the necessary, because aim of political science, you will write at the end, aim of political theory is to improve the life of the people. From the time of Plato to Aristotle, every political theory was given with the motivation of improving the life of the people. Human predicaments should be resolved, and until you have action oriented relevant political theories, only data will not solve anything. And this is what is the post behavioral revolution. So statement is perfectly correct. Here you have to write what went wrong in behavioralism, right? How behavioralism made political science narrow, how inclusion of the value and relevance skill change into the post behavioralism, and how behavioralism or this post behavioralism both has permanently changed the way the normative political science was being taught before the Second World War. ठीक है, तो इनके में चार्ल्स मेरियम लिख सकते हो, लोगों की कमी नहीं है, यू मस्ट बी नोइंग. आई एम टेलिंग यू हाउ what all you need to write in these questions. Go to the next one. Fascism. The question in fascism is, fascism displays an ambivalent stance towards the parliamentary democracy. Explain. क्वेश्चन कहता है कि fascism पार्लियामेंट्री डेमोक्रेसी के प्रति दुविधा रखता है कि इसको लें न लें, माने ना माने. तो इस बात को बताइए कि why fascism has confusion related to the parliamentary democracy. So it is very clear that fascism is an ideology, believes in certain dictums. The power should be concentrated into one person, Superman hero. Racial superiority is there. Patriarchy is complete. Importance of nation as God and state as the unchallenged authority. As we know, nothing above state, nothing beyond state, nothing outside state. Statement of Mussolini is very famous. So the fascism is always there as the relevant idea. Now the question is how it is related with the parliamentary democracy. If we take the rise of Hitler or rise of Mussolini, both used the parliamentary democratic route to capture power. Both of them. So therefore, not necessarily that parliamentary democracy can not be used by the fascism to gain its own totalitarianism in this kind of system. But if we take the parliamentary democracy in the modern sense, like British parliamentary democracy, Indian parliamentary democracy, then fascism is definitely not fitting with this, because fascism does not accept any challenge or question to itself. So at the end you will write the same conclusion कि देखो सर fascism में क्या है कि इसकी ideology भी clear नहीं है, इसके system भी clear नहीं है, it is anti-ideology. Majority of you must have written fascism is a hodgepodge of ideology. पता नहीं कहाँ से पढ़ते हो और कैसे इंट्रोडक्शन लिखते हो, भगवानी मालिक. ठीक है, एनीवे तो ऐसे जनरलाइज्ड इंट्रोडक्शन बार बार लिखते रहने का कोई मतलब नहीं है कि fascism आया, कुछ भी आया हम लिखेंगे fascism is a hodgepodge of ideology. Very bad. Anyway, तो लिख देना है कि ब्रिटिश काइंड ऑफ पार्लियामेंट्री डेमोक्रेसी के साथ fascism नहीं चलेगा, बट मैनिपुलेटिव तो हर जगह हो सकता है मामला. And only the Hitler gained power and became fascist initially only through the manipulation and capturing of the parliament. ठीक है, तो पार्लियामेंट्री डेमोक्रेसी के साथ fascism के साथ जो एम्बिवेलेंस है, in one sense can be said to be there, but fascism as totalitarian ideology doesn't go with the modern parliamentary liberal democratic system. Okay, next one. Affirmative action policies draw much strong criticism as strong support. Statement is largely true. Analyze this statement in the context of equality. Right? So, हमें क्या करना है? We have 3-4 things to do. Number one, what is affirmative action with one example? That is first paragraph done. Then other is why people criticize. Then point number one, the criticism against affirmative action, the grounds of criticism. किस scholars को लिखोगे? सारे न्यू लिबरल वाले आपके सपोर्टर हैं. Then those who support affirmative action, आप जॉन रॉल्स को लिख सकते हो, आप डॉक्टर अंबेडकर लिख सकते हो, आपके पास लोगों की कमी नहीं, ऑस्टिन लिख सकते हो. ठीक है, और ये सब कितने लिखना है? 3 पॉइंट लिखना, 1 2 3 1 2 3, या जस्ट एरो एंड स्मॉल 3 lines 2 lines point. And then you will have to write that if we talk, okay, second portion is the context of equality, you will have to analyze. So now you will go to the concept of equality. See, when we analyze the concept of equality, it can be understood in a very simplistic way in procedural versus substantive equality. Both are important. Liberals and classical liberals, they believe only in procedural. If we talk about Marxists, they are talk only about substantive. But it is the positive liberals who want to combine both of them, and therefore it comes into result of the affirmative action. So the thing is very clear. The society in which discrimination is by birth, inherent, traditional and historical. It is not possible to have the equality without the affirmative actions. So affirmative actions actually create equality of opportunity, which is the mid ground between the equal procedural equality and the substantive equality. So in this way, enough amount of thinkers you have and you can always create a very good answer for this. लेकिन शुरू से लेके अंत तक बिल्डअप करना, बिना मतलब के नहीं लिखना, एंड अननेसेसरी थिंकर्स और बाकी चीज़ों को कोटेशन में नहीं डालना. दिस इज समथिंग विच इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. ओके, नेक्स्ट राइट. Eurocentrism is both the target and the motive force of the post-colonial political theory discuss. क्वेश्चन आ गया तो सबसे पहले स्टूडेंट के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से क्या काम करना है, क्वेश्चन का मतलब समझना है, पहला काम. सो माय मीनिंग इज दैट हाउ पोस्ट कोलोनियल थियरी, पॉलिटिकल थियरी, व्हाटएवर इट मींस, इज अगेंस्ट द यूरोपियन डोमिनेंस इन इकोनॉमिक्स एंड पॉलिटिकल साइंस. ठीक है, ये बात हमें बतानी है ना. जो भी आप बताओगे, यू नीड टू नो कि हाउ मेनी स्कॉलर्स डू यू नो. तो यू विल काउंट पोस्ट कोलोनियल स्कॉलर्स 1 2 3, कोई तो आपको पता होगा उनके मेन बातें क्या है. देन यू हैव टू बिल्ड योर आर्ग्यूमेंट दैट यूरोसेंट्रिज्म है क्या, इज बोथ द टारगेट एंड द मोटिव फोर्स ऑफ द पोस्ट कोलोनियल थियरी. इसमें कोई डाउट नहीं है कि पोस्ट कोलोनियल थियरी इज अ न्यू अप्रोच that was developed after Second World War with the same vision that so far the political science theories are based on Eurocentrism. जो थियरी ऑफ स्टेट है, पावर है, डेमोक्रेसी है, सोवरेनिटी है, रूल ऑफ लॉ है, which have been the main themes of political science, are better suitable for the European countries, American countries. But countries of Asia and Africa, because of their colonial past and different value system, they don't fit into the explanations of the Western societies. Therefore, we need a new approach to understand the specificity of the developments in the post-colonial state. Then you can write 2-3 thinkers here, like Kwame Nkrumah, New Imperialism. You can write here the dependency theory of few people who know how it is there. You can write Orientalism as the counter-Eurocentric concept of Edward Said. और सब कुछ लिखने के बाद लास्ट में यू लिख देना, you see the point here is that post-colonial theory is not a full-fledged political theory which can explain the total development of the political system in the developing countries or third world countries. It can be best understood only as the new modern approach which says and wants the developing countries to adopt their own alternative views other than the Eurocentrism, और पूरी तरह से यूरोपियन चश्मे से अपने आप को देखने की जरूरत नहीं है. You can also write that the modern concepts like global south or the traditional concept we have new international economic order NAM, modern G20 global south, all these concepts are somehow having the elements of the post-colonial theory of state. They are also critical of Euro dominance, European American dominance, but it is not possible actually to totally break away from the Western political theories. तो पोस्ट कॉलोनियल थियरी को हमें वेस्टर्न व्यू का क्रिटिक बनाना है, हमें उसका वेस्टर्न व्यू का बिल्कुल अलग से सिस्टम में क्रिएट नहीं करना है. ओके, नाउ नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन वी हैव. ओके, एक्सप्लेन. Buddhist thought on Dhamma facilitates the emancipation of political science action. 20 marks. Big question. You may not be finding sufficient thing, so at least you must have prepared 10 duties of the king. ये तो जानते हो. तो सबसे पहले क्या करना है कि the Buddhist thought for a king provides 10 moral duties of the king. पहले तो इसको लिख दो. आप पूरा 10 मत लिखो, कुछ लिख दो. 10 duties you can only explain, but write the 10 duties of the king if you know. Then write that Buddhism, when it was created, provided some kind of moral calmness on the realistic king of Arthashastra version of Kautilya. Mahajanpad period king in which Gautam Buddha was born was highly anarchical in nature. And therefore, Buddhism definitely created a new kind of Dhamma, means the holistic concept of duties for the king who will be following a different kind of the Raj Dharma. Next point, you can write Ashoka, because we have two Buddhist thoughts of political theory for the king. One is Sambalan tradition, which is the idealistic tradition, which supports the Hinayana version, Atmadipo Bhava, and then Ashokan tradition of the Dhamma version, in which the Mahayana tradition is followed. When Ashoka means king is taken as the paternal figure, divine son, and therefore non-violent methods and propagation of the Buddhist system becomes the thing. So definitely emancipation of political action means that the political action must not be, last में ये लिखना है कि political action must not be rooted in the blind quest for power after power, because war and cruelty and power and geopolitics may not be very good idea. In this, Dhamma also establishes the superiority of ideological power or soft power over the coercive power or the military power. In this way, definitely Buddhism creates a kind of emancipation of political action from the war, violence and cruelties and mistrust against each other. तो ये सारी बातें आपको इसमें लिख देनी है. ओके, नेक्स्ट वन, gender based question. The legal subordination of one sex is to another is wrong in itself. Legal subordination कानूनी रूप से, and कानूनी रूप से means you have to write in this question first line that the statement belongs to liberal feminism, first phase of feminism. Anyway, when J.S. Mill's name is openly given, we will have to write J.S. Mill. हमें क्या पूछा गया है, कमेंट करने को बोला गया है, तो हम लोग इसको सीधे बता देंगे कि इसका मतलब क्या होता है, whatever statement is given. So it just says, J.S. Mill says that legally women should not be made inferior to men. States should not create discrimination against women, which means that equal opportunity to prove their ability and merit and talent should be given to women. Women are not subordinate and must not be subordinate in the legal sense. Now, after this, we will write that J.S. Mill belongs to the liberal feminist school of thought with his book Subjection of Women and XYZ things. Then he will write in next paragraph that this contention of J.S. Mill falls into the category of a progressive mainstream Western political thinker who demanded for the first time equal voting rights for women. He never wanted to be a kind of a revolutionary feminist thinker, and therefore he said that let's give women a chance to prove themselves that they are not behind, and if they prove that they are not naturally inferior, then they should be given equal chance. In this way, under the influence of the Harriet Taylor, his wife, probably, as people say, he was supporting the role of equally talented women in the growth of society. और बिना आधी महिलाओं के डेवलपमेंट के अपॉर्चुनिटी के बाकी पूरा समाज कैसे डेवलप कर सकता है when women are covering half of the space. The women suffragist movement and Mary Wollstonecraft after him, all those things will be very important criteria. Mary Wollstonecraft before him will be very important criteria to establish the equal legal and political rights to women as the outcome of first wave of feminism, liberal feminism. तो यही बातें थोड़ा घुमा फिरा के लिख देना है. लास्ट में आप ये भी लिख सकते हैं, conclusion, that legal equality as prescribed by Mill may not be the sufficient scope and the conditions for overall women gender equality in the society as it has been proved by radical feminist and the postmodern feminist. आप इस बात को प्रूव करने का एक आध एग्जाम्पल भी दे सकते हो, जैसे कि पेट्रियार्की का, लेकिन इसको नहीं खींचना है. हाँ, लिबरल फेमिनिज्म और जेएस मिल को ज्यादा वेटेज देना है, रेडिकल पे मत आ जाना यहाँ. श्री अरबिंदो. Aurobindo's idea of Swaraj has deep significance in Indian social, political and cultural history and life. What you will write here? You will write here that Swaraj, introduction. Swaraj has remained a key figure for people's motivation. From the constitutionalist moderates to political extremists, extremist leaders and mass politics of Mahatma Gandhi. The popularity and visibility of the concept of Swaraj during freedom struggle is not because that it was very dear to every person in India, but because it is so vague that it has the susceptibility to be defined in multiple ways. Tilak, Aurobindo Ghosh, Bipin Chandra Pal. These three people were first to use this concept in detail, but all the three extremist leaders gave a different definitions to them. And this Aurobindo was the first one in 1906 who defined Swaraj as the complete political independence of India from the British Raj. वो किसी सेल्फ रूल एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन, तिलक, बिपिन चंद्र पाल, एस.एन. बनर्जी, नौरोजी, इसमें से कोई भी कंप्लीट इंडिपेंडेंस की बात स्वराज के लिए नहीं करता था. द अरबिंदो वाज द फर्स्ट. ये बात लिखना पड़ेगा, ठीक है. अब इसका सिग्निफिकेंस क्या है? अब इसका सिग्निफिकेंस है कि जब कंप्लीट इंडिपेंडेंस की बात है, देन अरबिंदो विल नॉट एक्चुअली स्पेयर any method to make our country politically independent and completely free from the British Raj. Revolutionary terrorism, use of violence, concept of cultural nationalism, Mother India, and having the motivation of political struggle not only as the feeling of anti-British but as the love for the motherland. भाई देशभक्त कौन? जो अंग्रेजों के खिलाफ लड़ाई करे, but that is negative way. Aurobindo said Swaraj is a positive way, love for the motherland, and therefore it is totally different. So Aurobindo provided a cultural, spiritual, emotional content to the revolutionaries, to the concept of Swaraj, and concept of Mother India, though was given first time by Bankim Chandra in Anandamath, his book, but it was used as the political narrative by the Aurobindo Ghosh. Aurobindo Ghosh, right? And then even then, when he took political sannyas and went to Pondicherry, फिर उसमें भी कोई बहुत अंतर नहीं बचा. वो इस वाले कॉन्सेप्ट पे कि स्वराज is the total liberation, political and internal, and rising from the ordinary human consciousness to the super mind and super consciousness is something is called the highest kind of thing. Integral yoga is not totally delinked with the political concept of Swaraj before Aurobindo Ghosh took sannyas after Alipur conspiracy case. तो ये सब बातें मिला के एक नैरेटिव बनाना है, स्टोरी बनानी है, और बिना कंफ्यूज किए एग्जामिनर को इस चीज को दिखा देना है. Okay, okay, go to the next one. Imprint of the British Constitution on Indian Constitution. Britishers छाप क्या पड़ी है, यू नो, डिस्क्रिप्टिव क्वेश्चन, इसको बताने की जरूरत नहीं है. सेकेंड इज इन्वायरमेंटलिज्म ऑफ पुअर. ये है बढ़िया क्वेश्चन कि गरीबों का पर्यावरणवाद. नाउ देन दिस क्वेश्चन, हु इज गरीब? Environmentalism of poor should be taken here largely as, you can take two definition here. Poor means the developing countries, or poor means poor people. And some of you can write both. That if we take the environmentalism of poor as the environmental movement in developing countries, then their concern will be different from the developed countries. If we talk about environmentalism of poor, then development is the environmentalism of poor, because Indira Gandhi said in 1971 conference very clearly that poverty is pollution. UNEP 1972. Poverty is pollution. So poor people का environmentalism क्या है? प्रदूषण कम करना नहीं, विकास विकास ज्यादा करना. So development of developing countries, rise in quality of life of poor people is their environmentalism. And how they can do so? By having clean technology given to them by someone who is not poor. And so international principles like common but differentiated responsibility, welfare schemes like Ujjwala cylinder scheme, environmentalism of the poor. आप रसोई गैस का चूल्हा जलवाना बंद करिए, गैस का सिलेंडर दीजिए, अपने आप थोड़ा पोल्यूशन कम हो जाएगा, है ना. तो environmentalism of the poor is totally different concept from overall environmentalism, because it has to be defined from the perspective of economically vulnerable people. Now go to the next one. District Planning Committee, Article 243 ZD, साफ साफ लिखा है क्या क्या इसका काम होता है. At the end of explaining, you may write कि भाई हमारे जो मुंशी कमीशन बना था सेंटर स्टेट रिलेशन पे, they recommended that this district planning committee should be really made functional for the effective planning and management in India. ठीक है, बट डीपीसी आज तक कॉन्स्टिट्यूट नहीं हुआ है. ये सिर्फ एक गाइडलाइन की तरह है, इसको बनाने से शायद कुछ बेहतरी हो ऐसा मानना है. इस बुक को लिख के बाकी डीपीसी, एज आई सेड, दैट आर्टिकल 243 ZD में साफ साफ लिखा है. यू कैन गो एंड सी देयर. ओके, सत्याग्रह एंड इंडियन नेशनलिज्म. यू नो, so I've told you that as Swaraj was the common theme from beginning to end, Satyagrah was a common theme when Gandhi joined Indian politics in 1920. You can say till now. Indian nationalism मतलब 1947 तक. Yeah, basically all the three big movements of Gandhi from all Gandhian movements: Champaran, Ahmedabad, Kheda, Roller Satyagrah, NCM, right? His constructive, social constructive program, his then CDM, individual Satyagrah, Quit India movement, his temple entry movement. All the Gandhian things had the common element of Satyagrah. तो सत्याग्रह तो मेन टेक्निक ऑफ मास मूवमेंट है गांधी का. ये तो लिखना ही लिखना है. देन यू विल राइट सत्याग्रह का मतलब क्या होता है कि इंसिस्टेंस ऑन द ट्रुथ. और इसका मतलब सामने वाले को दबाना नहीं है, इसका मतलब सामने वाले का हृदय परिवर्तन कराना होता है. तो सत्याग्रह इज नॉट कोवर्सिव फोर्स. सत्याग्रह इज द force of insistence, peacefully, rationally, logically, by bearing the pain. Therefore, Satyagrah is not for the coward but only for the brave. और भारतीय राष्ट्रीय आंदोलन में सत्याग्रह had the different meaning. Like non-cooperation movement said, I will not cooperate with you. It became Satyagrah. It included boycott. It included the burning of foreign clothes, boycotting schools and all. Then became CDM 1930. सत्याग्रह वो भी था, but that सत्याग्रह included breaking, deliberately breaking of unjust laws. वो एक स्टेप ऊपर पहुंच गया. सत्याग्रह 1942 भी था, Quit India, which means that quit India, do or die. प्लीज लीव द इंडिया फॉर इंडियंस नॉट फॉर जापानीज। तो सत्याग्रह का वर्जन बदलता चला गया, इवॉल्व होता चला गया। द फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी ऑफ द कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ सत्याग्रह रिमेन्ड लाइक स्वराज वन ऑफ द डिफाइनिंग फीचर्स ऑफ इंडियन फ्रीडम स्ट्रगल। नेशनल कमीशन फॉर माइनॉरिटीज फैक्चुअल है, यू कैन गो एंड सी। नेशनल माइनॉरिटी कमीशन एक्ट 1992 से बना है। क्या करता है? वही ट्रेडिशनल बातें हैं, डिस्क्रिप्टिव क्वेश्चन है, यू कैन सिंपली राइट इट। Discuss the major provisions of the 74th Constitutional Amendment Act. Do you think that the act remains an unfulfilled dream? Question देखो, please understand the question because that's how it will make. So discuss the major provisions, तो ये तो कर दो, no, very easy, major provisions लिख दो। Municipal Corporation Act 74th, PRI मत लिख देना भाई, 73rd ना है, ये 74th है। बहुत लोग गलती से 73rd भी लिख के आ गए होंगे, आई कैन अंडरस्टैंड, बट दिस इज नॉट 73rd, इट इज 73rd। तो ये तो लिख दो, इसके जो भी 2-4 पॉइंट फैक्ट तुमको पता है वो लिख डालो। डू यू थिंक दैट द एक्ट रिमेन्स अनफुलफिल्ड ड्रीम? विल यू से यस, नो? आपको लिखना है कि नहीं सर बहुत काम किया है, तो 70% 80% यू विल राइट नो, it has done its work very good, and लास्ट में 20% 30% यू को राइट, बट कुछ तो इंप्रूवमेंट चाहिए। आर्ग्यू योर केस। हमारा केस उल्टा नहीं बनेगा कि नहीं सर म्युनिसिपल कॉर्पोरेशन तो कुछ भी नहीं किया, ऐसे नहीं। लाखों करोड़ खर्चा होता है म्युनिसिपल कॉर्पोरेशन पे। दे हैव बीन इंडेक्स्ड बाय नीति आयोग, दे आर ई गुड गवर्नेंस, दे आर म्युनिसिपल बॉन्ड्स, चैलेंजेस आर देयर, बट देन आर्ग्यू योर केस में यही करना है, प्रोविजन लिख दो पहले, यू नो, दैट इज 60-70 वर्ड्स, देन यू राइट दैट अनफुलफिल्ड ड्रीम। नहीं, आप उसके अचीवमेंट बताओ, कैसे वो काम कर रहा है नीति आयोग में, स्वच्छता में, कोविड में कैसे काम किया, विमेन रिप्रेजेंटेशन में कैसे काम करता है। देन व्हाई वी कैन से दैट अनफुलफिल्ड ड्रीम है। ड्रीम बहुत बड़ा है तो कुछ पोर्शन तो अनफुलफिल्ड रहेगा ही, challenges are always there, so write few challenges ki why it can be said, and then they say ki see the overall thing is it needs to continuously evolve, you know, और तभी जाके भारत जैसे बड़े देश में ऐसे सारे मुद्दों को हम, इंस्टीट्यूशंस को हम ठीक कर सकते हैं। okay, how does नीति आयोग as a policy think tank with shared vision visualize the reorganization of planning in India? ठीक है, तो नीति आयोग क्या करता है ये बता दो। प्लानिंग कमीशन खत्म हो गया, नीति आयोग बना दिया गया। देन फर्स्ट पैराग्राफ विल बी द डेटा दैट प्लानिंग कमीशन एंडेड, नीति आयोग established, this is the full name of the नीति आयोग, and this is basically policy think tank and the advisory research institution to the both center states and other agencies involved for the development of India। ठीक है, उसके बाद आप लिखो कि नीति आयोग के काम क्या है, फिर लिखो नीति आयोग क्या क्या किया है, पॉलिसी लाइक इंडेक्स कौन कौन से निकालता है। देन यू विल राइट, यू नो, लाइक व्हाट इज कॉम्पिटिटिव फेडरलिज्म इन नीति आयोग, एंड देन यू विल प्रूव विद ऑल दिस थिंग द कोऑपरेटिव कॉम्पिटिटिव दैट नीति आयोग हैज प्लेड अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट रोल इन टोटली ट्रांसफॉर्मिंग द कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ प्लानिंग इन इंडिया। और इन सब बातों से प्रूव करके आपको दिखाना है कि प्लानिंग कमीशन खत्म हो गया और नीति आयोग ने प्लानिंग को बिल्कुल एक नए तरीके से डिफाइन करने की कोशिश की है, थ्रू कॉम्पिटिटिव फेडरलिज्म, थ्रू नीति आयोग रिसर्च पेपर्स, थ्रू वेरियस स्कीम्स लाइक अटल इनोवेशन मिशन एंड ऑल दोज थिंग्स, और इंडेक्स स्वच्छता भारत और many schemes, indexes the नीति आयोग brings, competitiveness is increased। तो ये सारी देके आप लिख सकते हो कि बिल्कुल ठीक कह रहे हो, ट्रांसफॉर्म तो कर दिया है, इसमें कहीं कोई डाउट नहीं है। नेक्स्ट इज ऑस्टिन का नाम ही दे दिया, इस बार यूपीएससी ने आपके लिए कोई बहुत टेंशन नहीं छोड़ा है, दे हैव गिवन द नेम ऑस्टिन, so it is the cliche question majority of you must have written in the test series if you have done seriously। So Constitution of India is the cornerstone of the nation। cornerstone मतलब कि मजबूत एरिया जिस पे पूरा बिल्डिंग का एक पूरा महत्वपूर्ण आधार खड़ा है। ऐसा नहीं है कि पूरा सब कुछ ही उसी एक ही कॉर्नर पे रहता है, बट कॉर्नर स्टोन तो है ही, इसमें कोई डाउट नहीं है। एंड व्हाई ही हैज सेड इट? बिकॉज ऑफ द वेरियस फीचर्स, noble features, unusual features and regular features of Indian constitution. For example, Indian constitution as a social document, federation with centralizing tendencies, so Indian constitution is definitely a cornerstone of the nation. Minority rights है, CSTs हैं, स्पेशल पावर ऑफ द स्टेट्स है, कितना लंबा कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन है। तो बेसिक फीचर्स की बात करके आप बताओगे कि इसलिए भाई ऐसा ऐसा है, दिस इज व्हाट वी आर वेरी डाइवर्स कंट्री एंड देयरफॉर इट कैन बी सेड टू बी कॉर्नर स्टोर ऑफ द नेशन। नेक्स्ट, does the actual working of Indian federalism conforms to the centralizing tendency in the Indian polity? Give reasons for your answer. क्वेश्चन समझना है सबसे पहले। वर्किंग ऑफ द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन conforms to centralizing tendencies in polity. Give reasons for your answer. एक्चुअल वर्किंग ऑफ फेडरलिज्म, तो यहां पे आप आर्टिकल तो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के लिख सकते हो, बट यू हैव टू टेल outside the articles of the constitution what factors actually in the actual working of federalism creates more. पार्टी सिस्टम यहां लिखना था कि देखो सर, रीजनल पार्टी, नेशनल पार्टी, रोल ऑफ फाइनेंस कमीशन लिखना था, ठीक है, जीएसटी लिख सकते हो। तो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में तो सेंट्रलाइजिंग टेंडेंसी है ही है। पॉपुलैरिटी ऑफ प्राइम मिनिस्टर लिख सकते हो, यू नो, बहुत सारी चीजें हैं। सो ऑल दिस थिंग्स यू कैन राइट दैट practically also when Indian federalism is allowed to work, it creates the various things of the centralizing tendencies, you know. When you write political party, you can give the various statements of even the modern leaders, opposition leaders or scholars like Yogendra Yadav, Atul Kohli, Rajni Kothari. तो ऐसे लोगों की कमी नहीं है, पीबी मेहता। तो you can always write that Indian federalism, when it is working outside the articles of the constitution also, constitution में तो दिया ही हुआ है कि गवर्नर राष्ट्रपति शासन लगा सकता है, तो वो तो कर ही रहा है, बट प्रैक्टिकली जब गवर्नर इज imposing the राष्ट्रपति शासन, they are using more in the discretionary power, which is the practical thing, you know. फिर आप सुप्रीम कोर्ट के केस भी लिख सकते हो जहाँ सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने बोला है कि दिस इज इम्प्रैक्टिकल, अनकॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल, don't do this because it is more centralizing. You can also give the examples of how MM Punchi Commission or the Sarkaria Commission or Venkat Chalaiya Commission said that these things should be avoided because it is the misuse of the spirits and articles of the constitution. तो इन सारी चीज़ों को लेके आप इसमें ये काम कर सकते हैं। नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन, फंडामेंटल ड्यूटीज आ गया, और ड्यूटीज में क्या आया है? That main goal of fundamental duty in constitution is to generate civic responsibility among the citizens. Explain. इसमें कहीं कोई दिक्कत नहीं है, बिल्कुल सिविक रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी क्रिएट होता है। आप दो चार एग्जाम्पल ले लो फंडामेंटल ड्यूटीज का और दिखा दो कि दिस ड्यूटी इज गिवन रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी। लाइक सिविक रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है कि नॉट टू डू एनीथिंग अगेंस्ट डिग्निटी ऑफ वुमेन, not to treat animals cruelly, to promote composite culture, believe in scientific temper, go for human excellence, respect Indian constitutions and defend the country. ये जो सारे हैं, ये सारे के सारे एक अच्छा सिविलियन बनाते हैं, एक अच्छा नागरिक बनाते हैं, ठीक है। तो इसमें कोई डाउट नहीं है कि ये इसीलिए दिया है। एंड देन यू विल राइट दैट लीगल इंपॉर्टेंस इट, यू विल राइट कब ये इंक्लूड किया गया, you will write that what if somebody violates it, what Supreme Court said on this issue. And then you can also at the end, as a political science student, that in the liberal democratic constitution, if we see the fundamental duties should not be there, you know, because in liberal context, duties of the citizens are not in the constitution, because if it is the civic responsibility, it should not be there in the constitution. And when it was included during emergency by 44th Second Amendment, it itself has a questionable background. but overall it wants the citizens to adopt certain better duty in their life so that all of them can have a better civic responsibility. ठीक है, तो इसके दोनों तरफ डिबेट करना है, अच्छा भी है, और क्यों नहीं होना चाहिए ये भी बताओ, ऐसा नहीं है सुप्रीम कोर्ट जजमेंट बताओ, ड्यूटीज का इंपॉर्टेंस बताओ, एंड हाफ ऑफ द पेज में देन यू विल टेल कि व्हाट आर द मेन ड्यूटीज एज द सिविक रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी. नेक्स्ट, वेरी फेमस, डॉक्टर अम्बेडकर्स ऑर्गेनाइज, एजुकेट, एजिटेट स्ट्रेटजीज दलित मूवमेंट टुवर्ड्स अचीविंग सिविल लिबर्टी. एक जनरल क्वेश्चन है, आप इसका जनरल आंसर लिखिए. डॉक्टर अंबेडकर ने क्या बोला? दलितों को भी डांटा कि तुम ऐसे क्यों करते हो, उनको बताया व्हाट टू डू, राइट. फिर आप उनका एग्जाम्पल दो, हाउ ही डिड. देन यू गिव एग्जाम्पल व्हाट ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस ही मेड, then what were his main contention for Dalit issue, what his view on the caste, what he did as the framer of the constitution, draft committee chairman, and why he ultimately quit Hindu religion and joined Buddhism. ये सारी चीजें आपको लाइन से इसके अंदर लिखनी है, and that's how it will be resolved. Okay, next. The rise of caste politics is to be attributed to both regional aspiration and electoral manifestation. ये बहुत पुराना theoretical concept है. रजनी कोठारी, आंद्रे बेते, M.N. Srinivas, any thinker if you say in India, all of them will say this statement to be true, 100% true. Now the question is why they are true, why this statement is true. So statement is true because see, we have voting system. वोटिंग में लार्जेस्ट वोट वाला जीतेगा. So here comes people, mobilization and factors of mobilization. The easiest is caste. So democracy needs election and election makes caste important. Therefore electoral politics, सब क्वेश्चन पढ़ो, यही रजनी कोठारी और M.N. श्रीनिवास, आंद्रे बेते सब ने कहा है कि the rise of caste politics is to be attributed to both regional aspiration and electoral manifestation. तो ये तो हो गया electoral. अब regional manifestation में rise of regional parties. Why rise in regional parties is caste? Because rise of regional parties is definitely OBC politics in India or Dravidian politics in South India, and they are all caste based parties. So therefore it was always and it is always easy to have the maximum chunk of votes, because caste affiliation in India is bigger than maybe many things. Therefore it can be done. ठीक है, तो ये है. अब सिर्फ इतना लिखने से काम नहीं चलेगा, मल्टी डायमेंशनल होना होता है हमें. Then you will write कि is caste dominant factor of political mobilization? What are others? What are others? तो आप लिखेंगे कि ऐसा नहीं है. Other ideological factor, religious factor, linguistic factors are also important player in the political mobilization of India. And specifically with the rise of the 2014 and after Modi government and a rise of the ruling party, the caste alone as the factor to win election for the regional parties has substantially declined, especially in North India. Especially in North India. That's why the reason all the regional political parties today want the caste to be drummed again, while the ruling BJP party doesn't want caste to be talked about, which you can see Congress is every day talking about OBC caste census होना चाहिए, and BJP saying अब कुछ नहीं बोलती है. तो इसका मतलब ये है कि they understand that the caste affiliation वाला जो equation है has been broken by Modi ruling party. They want to bring it back. तो कास्ट इलेक्टोरल पॉलिटिक्स डेमोक्रेसी का मैनिफेस्टेशन और रीजनल एस्पिरेशन दोनों का ही है, इसमें कोई डाउट नहीं है। और रजनी कोठारी, अंद्रे बेते, एम.एन. श्रीनिवास, योगेंद्र यादव, all these people are very firm champion of whatever it is said. You can quote Rajni Kothari that without caste you can't understand politics of India. It is not casteism in politics but politicization of caste system in India. तो इसको बुरा नहीं मानना चाहिए, ये डेमोक्रेटिक डिपेंडिंग करता है। लास्ट में लिख देना कंक्लूजन में, है कि नहीं? सो यू विल ऑलवेज डू इट। दिस क्वेश्चन इज एनालिटिकल, ये वही लिख सकता है जिसका थोड़ा सा क्रिएटिव माइंड है। द डिकेड, देखो टाइम दे दिया। डिकेड कौन कौन सी सरकार बनी थी? 1989 में वीपी सिंह, नेशनल फ्रंट गवर्नमेंट एनएफ, जो कि कोलिशन गवर्नमेंट था। जनता पार्टी के एक्सपेरिमेंट के बाद फर्स्ट कोलिशन गवर्नमेंट, नेशनल फ्रंट। देन 99 में एनडीए बना, वाजपेयी पीएम बने। इन दोनों के बीच में यूपीए बन गया या नहीं भी बना तो हमारे कितने पीएम हुए? नरसिम्हा राव पीएम। कांग्रेस वॉज नॉट अलोन, ही मेड सरकार नरसिम्हा राव विद झारखंड मुक्ति मोर्चा एंड अदर्स, कोलिशन गवर्नमेंट। देन केम आई के गुजराल, ऑफ कोर्स द कोलिशन गवर्नमेंट। देन एच.डी. देवेगौड़ा, ये सब लिख देना कॉपी में। देन कोलिशन गवर्नमेंट, देन वाजपेयी 1, 2 in 98, 1, 92, 99 2 coalition government. The thing is, multi-party system was best reflected at work at the central government level between 1989 to 1999. और यही इस क्वेश्चन में पूछा है, इपोकल शिफ्ट इन द इंडियन पार्टी सिस्टम। अब सिंगल पार्टी डोमिनेंस का जमाना खत्म हो गया, इवन कांग्रेस इज नॉट देयर, सो मल्टी पार्टीज विल मेक द थिंग। ठीक है, अब आइडेंटिफाई द मेजर नेशनल ट्रेंड्स इन द पार्टी सिस्टम ड्यूरिंग दिस एरा। अब पार्टी सिस्टम के ट्रेंड बताओ, कांग्रेस का क्या हुआ, झारखंड मुक्ति मोर्चा कौन है, कैसे बनी ये एनडीए 99 में, है ना, रीजनल पार्टी तेलुगु देशम पार्टी और इनका कैसे रहा, नेशनल पार्टी और रीजनल पार्टीज के बीच में कैसे सी सॉ बैटल चलता रहा। ऑल दिस थिंग्स विल बी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट। व्हाई देयर वाज पॉलिटिकल इंस्टेबिलिटी, क्योंकि अब इतने कोलिशन गवर्नमेंट बनेगा तो देखो 10 साल है, हाउ मेनी प्राइम मिनिस्टर्स यू हैव? नरसिम्हा राव, एच.डी., आई.के. एंड वाजपेयी, तो 4 पीएम तो हो गए, विच शोज पॉलिटिकल इंस्टेबिलिटी, राइट। 3-4 बार इलेक्शन भी हो गया इसी बीच में। So therefore you will have to write Oscar, and then after VP Singh we have Chandrasekhar for a few months only. See, तो एक बिल्कुल अलग से है, रीजनल पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज और नेशनल पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज का रोल एक अलग तरीके से डिफाइन होता है। यू कैन ऑल्सो राइट विलियम एच रीकर का साइज प्रिंसिपल ऑफ कोलिशन, है ना, आप ये भी लिख सकते हैं, इसमें कहीं कोई दिक्कत नहीं है। Okay, last question for our understanding. Do you agree that over the years the Supreme Court has become a forum for policy evaluation? I hope you understood the question. अगर आप क्वेश्चन समझेंगे तभी लिखेंगे, अदरवाइज तो कुछ ना कुछ तो लिखा ही होगा। So policy evaluation, policy is job of executive. As per theory of separation of powers, Supreme Court must not go into policy. Pure policy decisions are executive, right? So Supreme Court judgments or review of policy is called judicial activism. Overreach, actually activism भी नहीं। Recently, the policies like demonetization. Recently, the policies like Article 370 abrogation. Recently, policies like the Central Amendment Act, citizenship. Many such policies have been challenged in the Supreme Court, through PIL.
point here is, this is not only policy but also a parliamentary law. This is not only a law policy but amendment of the law, means the law itself. तो अगर हम ये कहते हैं कि yes I agree, so we are going against Supreme Court and we are also going against the executive. So what we have to do in this question is that the Supreme Court has made it very clear that pure policy decisions will not be taken for judicial review. However, as Justice Bhagwati said, that no case shall be prevented from being instituted in the court if there is the possibility of violation of the fundamental rights. If the policies are sweeping or policies have been decided without the procedures prescribed for their decision, then Supreme Court has clear thing. On the other hand, as the political science student, we should know very clearly that for the separation of power, it is very much necessary that the Supreme Court or the High Courts must not entertain any petition for the policy review of the Government of India or the state government decisions. At the same time, if some people is aggrieved, then they must have the right to go there. तो हम इससे एग्री नहीं कर सकते हैं कि ये फोरम बन गया है पॉलिसी इवोल्यूशन का, ठीक है, क्योंकि सुप्रीम कोर्ट पॉलिसी तभी बनाता है when there is a grave human rights violation, right? Like, see, there is a case, Ashwini Kumar versus Union of India 2020. In that case, the petitioner wanted Supreme Court give direction to the Parliament to make law. Now the question is, if you don't give direction, then at least like Visakha judgment, make guidelines for prevention of custodial torture or custodial death for the implementation of DK Basu case. है कि नहीं? तो सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने बोला भाई देखो इतना एक्साइटेड मत हो, just because there is no law or there is some absence of law, it doesn't mean that on each such matter Supreme Court will make law for this. We should give some time to Parliament or the executive to come with the substantial amount of the law. And this is what is the very important feature. तो सुप्रीम कोर्ट वही विशाखा जजमेंट इवोल्यूशन का केस है, एमसी मेहता इवोल्यूशन का केस है, ठीक है। ये इवैल्यूएशन लिखा है यहां पे, क्वेश्चन में इवोल्यूशन है कि सुप्रीम कोर्ट पॉलिसी इवोल्यूशन कर रहा है, तो इसको लिखना है हां और ना दोनों। हां करना नहीं चाहिए, देखो करना नहीं चाहिए, बट कैसे जस्टिफाई करोगे? विशाखा केस एक्सट्रीम वायलेशन, विमेन फंडामेंटल राइट्स का कोर बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर, तो वहां तो सुप्रीम कोर्ट चल जाएगा, लेकिन जनरली ऐसा करना जुडिशियल ओवर रीच होता है और कोर्ट को ये सब करना नहीं चाहिए। So this was the paper. I think yes, first paper is done, and in the next video I'll come with the second paper. Thank you for the patience.